Hello, everyone. Welcome to PortaOne's webinar about new features in the latest maintenance releases of PortaSwitch and developments in a couple of other products. This webinar is going to be conducted by my colleague, Svetlana Melnichuk, who is a project manager at PortaOne, and myself, Mike Kidik, product officer at PortaOne. So what we are going to discuss today is obviously new features in latest 3 maintenance releases of PortaSwitch. There were also quite a few features and developments for the PortaPhone. And we've added a couple of new modules to our Add-on Mart, to our cloud-based solution for different tasks. So let's start, and we will start with the new features of PortaSwitch. And the first one was designed for your call center and some cloud PBX customers. It's basically related to call queue, as you can guess from its name. So let me explain the problem we were trying to handle here. As you're probably well aware, when your PBX customer, a call center customer, sets up a call queue, they can limit a number of participants in the queue. So when the queue is full and another caller is sent to a queue, they would normally get a message like no agents available to answer your call or something like that. You can make your own notification. But anyway, after that, the only option was to disconnect the call. And disconnecting the call was also the only option for the caller if they are waiting in the queue for too long time, like, I don't know, for a couple of hours and still they are not connected. Or if the person becomes the first in the queue and the system tries to connect it to one of the agents. And if there is some technical issue with the call center, or if a particular agent that was selected to answer the call for some reason doesn't answer the call, the system would just keep trying in a loop to get this call delivered to one of the agents. And if it's a technical issue with call center, like lost connectivity or something like that, basically it becomes just an endless loop. And the only option for the caller was just to hang up. That's pretty much it. So the solution we designed here is basically your PBX administrators who set up the call queue now have an option to set up an extra action, which happens if the queue is full, which can happen if the user is waiting for too long. So they can specify a period of time, which is considered okay for people to wait in the queue. And also if the system tries to connect the caller to one of the agents and that attempt failed. So the actions which PBX administrator can choose from are sending the call to voicemail, so the person can leave a message, or transfer to a particular extension or to another hand group, or even send a call to another call queue. So administrators set up this option, and of course there is a standard prompt which tells the user, hey, sorry, the queue is full, would you like to leave a message? Or we're sorry that it's taking too long to connect to the agent, would you like to wait, or would you like to leave a message or to be transferred to a supervisor or whatever? So there are standard prompts which come with the system, and of course your PBX administrator or call center administrator can upload some custom prompts. And of course the text of the prompt would depend on which particular action was set up to be taken if the user does confirm that they want to exit the queue, that they don't want to wait any longer, they just want to leave a message, for example, or they want to be connected to a manager immediately or something like that. So basically, the idea behind this is that the call queue becomes a much better user experience for the callers, and it makes your cloud PBX offer for call center customers and for PBX customers more attractive, since they can set up this more flexible, more sophisticated call queues. Now, the next new feature is the new web interface for resellers. As you are well aware, we've been designing and developing new web interface for administrators for about 5 or 6 years. So the administrator interface was completed a couple of years ago, and we now switched to other web interfaces that we have in this platform. So the first one, which was revamped, if you like, is the interface of resellers. It basically follows the same design as new administrator web interface. It's much faster, especially on big number of records compared to the old web interface. So like, for example, if a reseller has a lot of customers, I'm talking about like hundreds of thousands of customers, pages like customers, pages like account work much faster in this interface. It obviously has modern look and feel. So we believe that this new web interface will allow you to onboard more resellers. More people would be willing to work with your platform when it has this modern look and feel, and when the interface is responsive and fast. So it's basically a way for you to expand your sales channels through resellers, through additional resellers. The next feature is in the area of installation maintenance and installation management, if you like. So I know that most of you prefer our support engineers to do this low-level configuration, which is done through the configuration server. And whenever you need to do some change, or your business requires some changes, you normally contact support, and they schedule and perform this configuration change. However, we do have quite a number of customers who are now proficient with configuration server and do some basic modifications on their own. However, there was one thing which was still missing on the configuration server, on this web interface, where you can manage this technical and low-level settings, and that is management of access to the servers. I remember back in the days when our PortaSwitch was running on FreeBSD, and at some point we had to switch to Linux, we utilized a standard Linux or Unix feature, IP tables, to manage access. So basically you can block access from particular network, from particular IP addresses, and you can also fine-tune this access depending on the port where, you know, another user is trying to connect another system, or another or some user is trying to access. So the problem with the IP tables is that it's managed from a command line interface. And if the installation is big, I'm talking about PortaSwitch installations which are running on more than a dozen, maybe 20 servers, maybe even more, it becomes a nightmare. Like the person who is making modifications to IP tables, they would have to you know, get command line access to each of the server in the installation and manually change these rules for access to the servers. This management of IP networks, IP addresses is now available on the configuration server on the web interface. So it's a single point where the rules are defined, and these rules are automatically propagated into IP tables on each particular server. So it makes management of access to the servers much easier. Even more important thing is that if tomorrow you add new servers to your installation, or for some reason you have to reinstall one of the servers, you know, just, you know, wipe out all the data and install from scratch. These rules, which are defined on the configuration server, are applied automatically after a new server is added and after some server is reinstalled with the software from scratch. And speaking about speaking about adding servers to the installation. Whenever you have to expand your installation, maybe because you need to handle more capacity, you want to handle more traffic, more user requests, or if you, for example, introduced site redundancy, like introduce a second site in addition to your main site. So whenever such servers are installed with PortaSwitch software, they have to be added to this configuration server. So later on, your engineers or our support engineers can set up some services running on those servers, like PortaSIP or maybe database or web interface. So they can be managed from the configuration server. And before, you had to manually specify the IP address of each server, and you could only add them one by one, which is not very efficient. So in the latest maintenance release, new servers that have PortaSwitch software installed, they are automatically detected. It's basically a single click on the configuration server. It scans the local network, and whenever it detects the server with PortaSwitch software installed, that server can be added to the configuration list with a single click. And you can add multiple servers at a time. So all these changes are designed to make the administration of the installation simpler, and it should take less time for engineers, no matter whether those are your engineers or our engineers, to make these changes. Now, there was a couple of improvements which are related to troubleshooting. One of them is basically for telephony, dedicated to telephony. Obviously, when call fails, the SIP error message is stored in the XDRs. It is also stored in the SIP log, and it can always be later looked at for troubleshooting. The general problem with this was that many networks still use Q931 disconnect reasons, which come from ISDN standard. A lot of equipment and software still relays those disconnect codes even in SIP messages, just in special SIP headers. And the other problem, which was on PortaSIP, which existed on PortaSIP, is that PortaSIP used PortaOne proprietary mapping between those Q931 codes and SIP errors. So since only that information was stored in the XDRs, later on, sometimes it was required to spend a lot of time to understand why the call was actually dropped, disconnected, why it didn't go through. So with the latest maintenance releases, first of all, PortaSIP now respects all Q931 codes. Secondly, it stores the original code. Of course, if it's provided by a vendor or by the other party, it stores that code into the XDR, so it can be viewed later on. And that code is also visible in the SIP log. And the last point is that mapping from those Q931 disconnect causes to SIP errors now follows RFC. So it's not some proprietary PortaOne's mapping, which was designed some years and years ago. Now it's in strict accordance with RFC requirements. Now, the other improvement, which is also related to troubleshooting, is a disconnection of internet session. You probably know this feature. Those of you who do provide telephony services, you know that there was always an option to disconnect call from the active sessions page. If there is a call in progress, you could disconnect it. You could force disconnection of that call. And this is particularly important if you are terminating some accounts. Because if there is a call in progress for a particular account and you terminate it, then when the call ends, Porta Billing doesn't know which account to charge. It just cannot find the account since it had already been terminated. So usually the process would be to disconnect the call and then proceed with the account termination. Now, the same thing is available for internet sessions, and I would say this is even more important for internet sessions because, calls normally last from a couple of minutes, I don't know, maybe a couple of hours at most. while internet sessions, they can last for weeks and sometimes even months. And if you need to terminate an account, you don't want that session, which has been running for a couple of months, you don't want that session to be lost and not to be built. So you want to make sure that the session is disconnected before you actually terminate an account, which is used to access internet. And now there are multiple options. When you terminate an account, you have an option. You can choose to disconnect the session. Also, when you go to the active sessions page, you can disconnect a session and you can choose to block an account immediately. Because, you know, most devices for internet access, they would, if the connectivity is lost, the device would try to reconnect automatically. So to prevent those automatic reconnection, you disconnect the session and you also block the account. And then a minute later, for example, you can safely terminate the account and get this last session of the account built properly. So all these improvements are designed to simplify the life of engineers who do the troubleshooting, who do the, who have to find out why this session was charged, why this session was not charged, and things like that. Now, with the next slide, I'm passing the microphone to Svetlana, and she will continue.
Hello, everyone. I'll continue the presentation, and let's move on to the next topic, updating the PortaSwitch API. So with this new release, developers now have the ability to test PortaBilling API method directly on the built-in API documentation page without having to enter an access token. If a developer wants to test an API method from a particular realm, say admin or reseller, they first need to log in into the corresponding PortaBilling web interface and then switch to the documentation page. The best part is the authentication process is done automatically and there is no need for an access token. Moreover, developers can even test API method instantly on the documentation page without having to log into the PortaBilling web interface. So this feature provides simplified access to API testing, making it much easier for your developers to actually do their job. And now on to the next point is adding new extensions in bulk. You as a service provider can use PortaBilling API to enable your PBX customers to add multiple extensions at once via third-party or in-house developed self-care portals. What is more, we're also planning on adding this feature to our Cloud PBX self-care portal. So how it works. If a PBX customer wants to add a bunch of new phone lines for their employees, they can create a CSV file with a list of extensions. Then the portal uses the new customer upload extension method to pass the file to PortaBilling. All of the extensions get created and accounts made for each of them automatically. So what benefits does it offer for you? Well, this feature makes it easier for PBX customers to use the self-care portals that you have made or gotten from a third party. All right, so let's move on to our next topic, which is about the call control API. Now, this particular API allows users to manage and monitor their calls using external applications, and now it's available in the site redundant PortaSwitch. So let me explain what this means. You know, applications that communicate with PortaSwitch via the call control API, like web dialer, operator console, or CRM system with click to dial. Well, even if the main site goes offline, this application can still work just fine. So if you are offering your customers applications that have call control functionality, this feature can help ensure that your service is available 24/7. And let's talk about something that I am really excited about, our progress with the PortaPhone development. The PortaPhone application is now available on both iOS and Android platform. Yeah, it's pretty awesome, right? One of the main questions we have been getting about PortaPhone is whether or not it's customizable. Basic customization like color scheme, logos available right out of the box. Plus, we have developed a great tool called the Interface Configurator that makes it easy to customize your application. Now, here's something you should know. The application will be published to the Google and App Stores under your own name. So you'll need to have developers account on both platforms just to get started. If you want to test out the application on our own system, all you have to do is subscribe to the trial via Add-on Mart. And if you run into any difficulties, don't worry, you can always reach us at contact@portaone.com for assistance. We're here to help and answer questions if you have some. Now on to our next point. It's about PortaPhone API. I want to tell you how PortaOne can help you improve communication services by embedding WebRTC calling into your CRMs, applications, and websites. You already know about the PortaPhone project and our web dialer and mobile application, which are pretty popular. But did you know that they all use the same core? The core handles such important things like user authentication, context synchronization, WebRTC protocol implementation, push notifications for mobile devices. It also has an API that you can use for various purposes. When you subscribe to PortaPhone, you don't just get the dialer or mobile application, but also the ability to embed WebRTC calling into your own custom applications or website with your branding, for example. If you want to build your own integration, the procedure is the same as I already described. Just subscribe to Add-on Mart and check out GitHub for API documentation, source code, and other information. Yeah, if you have any questions, contact us, yeah, as usual. I want to share with you one example of such integration. We built a website widget that allows visitors of a site to call a sales agent directly from the landing page simply by clicking a call button. As you understand, behind that button is the same core component API. So one of our customers used this development for their client to provide them with quick access to sales agent. And the last topic in the PortaPhone section is BSS adapter. If your clients are using different VoIP system, or you bought another company and you still want to provide them with PortaPhone services, actually it's easy to do with a custom BSS adapter. When a user logs into the SoftPhone app or PortaPhone web dialer, the request from the app goes to the PortaPhone backend that uses this adapter and sends a request to your BSS or hosted PBX system, and the response is sent back to the app. This means your customers authenticated against your own VoIP system, their outgoing calls sent through it, and they have an access to their call history and anything else they need, actually. If you want to get your developers up and running in no time, we've got just the thing for you. We've got good documentation, ready-made examples, and the source code of both PortaPhone web and application available on GitHub. Now back to Mike.
Let's continue with new modules and additions to our Add-on Mart. Those of you who are not familiar, Add-on Mart is basically a marketplace where you can subscribe to different modules. All these modules are cloud-based, so they use cloud infrastructure to deliver particular pieces of functionality. So we recently added a new Add-on Mart module, which is for SMS notifications. I hope I don't need to convince you that SMS notifications are a great way to, first of all, improve your cash flow, make your customers pay in time, pay invoices in time, and so on. There are multiple studies on the subject available on the internet, but it does work. It even works in a way that it makes customer to pay on time. Of course, not all customers, but the percentage of customers who pay on time increases when you start using SMS notification, and it works much better than email notifications, for example. So if you like, you can Google for those studies. We will also provide you with a study later on when we will do another notification. And the notification is going to be about this module, which is basically an integration with Twilio for SMS delivery, and it uses Twilio API to basically send out SMS notifications to your customers. At this point, some of you should be kind of raising their hand and saying like, hey, wait a second, Mike, why would we want to sign up to some module in the Add-on Mart for SMS notifications if your PortaSwitch has been supporting SMS delivery for, I don't know, at least 5 years now, maybe even 10 years. It uses SMPP protocol. Why would we want another module for that? And let me explain the reason why this could be a better opportunity to start using SMS notification than just sending SMSs from PortaSwitch. It is true that PortaSwitch does support SMPP protocol, and we have actually a number of customers who use PortaSwitch for SMS delivery, and it works just fine. It's proven to work. It's okay. The only challenge there is that when you want to set up an interconnect with some company, some SMS aggregator or some SMS wholesale provider using SMPP protocol, you basically require an engineer who understands this protocol. Because in addition to just having a basic connectivity between PortaSwitch and the host of the other company, you also need to send a test message, troubleshoot in many cases, change some settings. For example, in PortaSwitch, you would be changing service policy, which is assigned to this SMPP connection, tweaking some of the parameters, sending more messages. So you need to go through this phase of testing and troubleshooting, okay? And as I said, it requires engineering resource. If you want to get instant access to SMS notification, then this SMS module would be just your way to go, because the integration between PortaSwitch and Twilio has already been tested by our QA. It works. It works fine, yeah. So basically, the only thing you need to do is to sign up to this module in the Add-on Mart, and you just need to open an account with Twilio, sending account with Twilio, which takes like a couple of minutes. So in a matter of like 5 minutes, you can get started and you can start sending notifications to your customer. The best news here, and that's the message you are going to receive later on, we are doing an email blast about this, that we are providing this add-on module with 3 months trial free of charge. So those of you who do have access to Add-on Mart already, you can just subscribe to that module, and 3 months free trial will be activated automatically. If you don't have access to Add-on Mart, I recommend you contact your sales manager or account manager, as they will send you a unique URL for registration. And once you register, you'll be able to sign up to any modules which are available in the Add-on Mart. Well, having that said, I have to say that we are also open to integration with other companies. So if you have some other SMS aggregator, SMS wholesale provider in mind, and you would like us to create another module, integrate with that SMS provider, please type a name of that provider into the chat box. You can do it right away. You can do it right now. For example, and you have to understand these integrations are, I mean, these days, such integrations are very easy to do. So a couple of days ago, we decided to do this integration with Vonage, another wholesale SMS provider, among many other things that Vonage does. So that integration was coded in a matter of hours. Now it's being tested, and soon we will publish that module in Add-on Mart as well. But the final code for the integration is basically 2 pages of the source code, like 2 screens of the source code. So, you know, it does not require some senior developer to do this kind of integrations. And if you like to do that integration on your own, you are welcome to do it. Moreover, we can, if you implement such a module for SMS notifications via another SMS provider, we can publish that module in the Add-on Mart, so other PortaOne customers can sign up and can use the same company you are using for SMS notifications. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. The next module. This module is designed for our US customers because it's about taxation, and taxation in the US is more complex, for example, than in Europe or in some African countries. You know, they have different levels of taxes, and usually taxes are assessed by third-party solutions. We already done integration with BillSoft some long time ago, but unfortunately BillSoft was acquired by Avalara and it's officially not supported anymore. We also have integration with SureTax. So recently we've done integration with another company that's alternative to SureTax called Compliance Solution. It's Florida-based. They specialize in telecom taxation only. They don't do any other kind of taxation. And they do, it's basically a turnkey taxation service. So they do the full range of services. Tax assessment, reporting to authorities, getting tax credits, and you name it. Their solution calculates all kinds of taxes, like federal, state taxes, per line taxes, even government-imposed surcharges like USF, for example. So if you don't want to go with SureTax for some reason, you have another alternative, and that is Compliance Solutions. And the last module I wanted to mention in today's webinar is Mobile Self-Care Portal. This portal is designed for mobile users. And I know that in today's world, most mobile operators prefer to develop an application which the user would install on their smartphone and use that application to check their balance, do top-ups, subscribe to additional services, additional bundles, additional packages, and things like that. However, developing and deploying such an application requires developers, so development resources, and it also takes time. So if you want to, if you are already serving mobile users or you plan to launch some service for mobile users, the self-care portal would be a great place to start because it's available instantly. You just sign up to this module on the Add-on Mart, and the self-care portal can be used on any mobile device because the only thing the mobile users need is a browser on their mobile phone. Currently, it's an MVP. It's in the MVP stage, so it has only some basic functionality, like you can see it on the screenshots, like seeing the balance, seeing the active packages, activating some additional bundles or packages, and so on. We also plan to introduce top-up using the credit card and some other features, But if you have a particular need and you want to use the self-care portal, please do contact us and we'll discuss what other features are required immediately for your business. We prefer to work, as you know, we always prefer to work on particular requests from the customers, not with to have the most pressing features implemented first. Now, since we're covered the Add-on Mart, I would like to run a quick poll among you, because we do have some options to move some of the PortaSwitch features or introduce some additional features into the Add-on Mart. And as I said, Add-on Mart, it's a cloud-based infrastructure. So basically, we are talking here about moving some functions of PortaSwitch into cloud services. Let me quickly describe what we are planning to do next in PortaSwitch. So since we are done with reseller web interface, updating reseller web interface, the next step for us, and it's already work in progress, we want to replace the web interface for distributors, again, to follow this modern look and feel and to work faster. Then another feature is in the area of cloud PBX call centers. That's a wrap-up timer, basically allows the agent some time to wrap up after they finish the call before they start taking new calls. So it's like an automatic timer which allows some extra time for the agent to work on the issue, maybe log something about what was reported by the client, or make some notes, or pass the issue to somebody else, and so on. Then generic origin-based charging. We do have some special cases of origin-based charging available in PortaSwitch. That's like calls within European Economic Area, calls from outside the European Economic Area, which are charged differently, interstate, intrastate calls in the United States, and so on. But those are like specific cases, and we don't have a generic solution. And I know some of you have been waiting for this solution for quite a while. I'm happy to announce that we finished design of the solution. And I'm sorry it took this long, because we had to collect examples of this origin-based tariffs from different companies. And we did collect more than a dozen of such tariffs, or rate sheets, if you like, which had they actually have different presentation, different modes, and so on. And we designed a solution which should accommodate all these different cases which are used by different companies. So sometimes, you know, origin-based price is a surcharge on top of the normal destination-based charge. Sometimes origin-based based price replaces the destination-based price. Sometimes it's per prefix, sometimes it's per country, sometimes it's per origination group, and things like that. So we finished the design, and our plan is to start implementation basically within a month. In summer, I hope we will finish the implementation, and some of the maintenance releases in summer will have this origin-based charging ready. But as usual, we would like to work on things which are business critical for you. So if you have some business idea, you want to launch some new service, you want something to be changed in PortaSwitch that would improve your operations, your administrators will have to spend less time for managing your customers or do something else. Please do share your ideas with your account manager, with support. Doesn't matter which channel you use, but these ideas eventually will get to our project management department. They will contact you, they will collect your requirements, and we will turn this into a project to develop a new feature request. And now this is the gift that I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. We will provide you a link now to our cloud PBX checklist, which basically provides you with some tips how to make your cloud PBX service more attractive for your customers or potential customers. And let's have a Q&A session. I have a kind of a summary of what we've covered today. These are the topics, most important topics that we've covered. If you have any questions, please do not use chat. Please do use Q&A window to ask your questions. And we'll try to ask as many questions as possible today. So the question is about origin-based charges. Will origin-based now have 3 levels, like non-EU, EU, and non-EU, EU, and within the country? Well, the answer is this new design for origin-based charging implies unlimited levels of charges. So you can have, for example, for the same destination, like calls to particular country, it can have no origin-based change. Yeah, if the call comes from one list of originations, then from other prefixes, it can be a different. It can be additional price. Price A. Then from another list of originating countries or networks, it's another price, so price B. Then from third list of origination networks, it's price C, and so on. And the number of these origin-based surcharges or new prices will be unlimited. So you can set up as many as you need. And so far, I've seen examples of tariffs or rate sheets where there were up to 5 categories, origin-based categories. So like price different level, 5 different levels of pricing for a single destination. There is a follow-up question about whether it can do caller ID and IP geo-based origin. So the current design, I can tell you right away that the current design is not doesn't have anything to do with IP addresses. That's something we will have to add in the future. So it doesn't take into account IP addresses. It does consider CLI or caller ID, as it's called in the United States. And if caller ID is missing, for example, it's an anonymous call, then it can use asserted identity, another SIP header, which is supposed to provide information about the caller. So it will be based on CLI and asserted identity in cases when CLI is missing, but this design is not going to handle IP addresses. Okay, any other questions? I don't see any questions in chat.
Yeah,
go ahead.
In a Q&A section, I can cover the one about WebRTC. So regarding embedding this service into CRM, we have experience of embedding into the website, but actually you can do it for any CRM as you wish. We have a lot of documentation available on a GitHub. You can contact us and we will help you to find it, share all the links. There we have working examples, example of such widget that was integrated with the website. So we can help and we have an experience of integrations already.
Thank you, Svetlana. Okay, there is I'm not sure. It's not probably even a question. It looks more like just a statement or request. Enable origin-based pricing for A to Z destinations. But that's exactly how it's designed to work. Like for any destination, there can be origin-based surcharges, and as I said, multiple surcharges or multiple prices. And for some destinations, if it's not needed, then it's not used. It's just a simple destination-based price. So yeah, this is going to be supported. Now I'm going to ask you for, there are like if specific cases, like for example, this IP-based, origin-based charging, which is based on IP addresses, is required for France. So let's take this discussion. These are particular specific cases. Let's take discussions of these cases offline. So please contact through support or through your customer success manager. Please do contact us and we'll speak about that particular case. I don't think it makes sense to discuss it in you know, for the whole audience here. The same goes for a request about sending SMS to shortcode numbers. This would be something which has to be supported by the company that you will be sending SMS through. So I'm not sure if Twilio, for example, supports it in your country. You'll have to check it with Twilio. What I was describing is that this is an integration between PortaSwitch and Twilio to send these SMS notifications. PortaSwitch will simply pass the message to Twilio with a destination number. And then it is the responsibility of Twilio to deliver that SMS to the actual end user. Anything else here?
Well, regarding SMSs in PortaPhone, so we have such functionality in our roadmap, but right now we are collecting cases. So we are collecting use cases, and maybe you can help us. Well, I can contact you after the webinar, and you will help us to use cases to this functionality.
Thank you, Svetlana. There is a question whether this origin-based charging be available in MR100. And the answer is no. I'm sorry, but this feature requires drastic changes in core parts of Porta billing. In the billing engine, in the database, on the web interface. And our policy has been for many years, if we develop a new feature, and especially a feature which touches core components and core functionality, that feature always goes into the latest maintenance release. And the way to get that feature is to get the platform updated to the latest maintenance release. If we try to push this feature into the maintenance release that is already available, that has been released, I don't know, a year ago, for example, and it's being used by customers, there is since these changes are drastic, there is a very high risk that we will break something in that MR100, and we don't want to compromise stability of the existing maintenance release, you know, when it comes to introducing new features. That's why we have this process of producing new maintenance releases and testing them and you know, publishing them as a new release. Okay. So Svetlana, you answered the question about the SMS in PortaPhone.
Yeah.
Then I guess we are done. Thank you very much for your attention. It was a pleasure to conduct this webinar, and have a nice day.
Nice day. Bye.